Ever have a melody pop into your head, but can't remember who sang it, or even what it was called? That's 1968. Everything was changing. The music, the mood, and the message. Tucked between the giants were songs that came out of nowhere, lit up the charts, and then disappeared just as fast. Today on Americast, we're digging up 10 unforgettable one-hit wonders from 1968. And stick around, there might be a couple of bonus tracks you didn't expect. You may not remember the names, but trust us, you haven't forgotten how they made you feel. Bend Me, Shape Me, The American Breed. Could a brass-heavy pop song really break through in the middle of the psychedelic era? In 1968, Bend Me, Shape Me did just that. With slick horns, a pounding beat, and a hook that landed on the first listen, The American Breed shot to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. Bright, punchy, and made to blast from a jukebox or a car radio. You might remember it from sock hops, roller rinks, or drifting out of a neighbor's screen door on a summer night. It wasn't flashy, but it made you move, and that was enough. The band never hit that level again. But this one, it stuck. A 2-minute burst of brass and joy that still makes you want to sing along. Love is Blue, Paul Mauriat. Some songs say everything, even when no one's singing. Released in 1968, Love is Blue didn't have lyrics, but it didn't need them. From the first delicate notes, it felt like someone putting their hand on yours without saying a word. A soft ache wrapped in violins and harpsichord. It was originally written for Eurovision, but when Paul Mauriat turned it into an instrumental, it found a second life and soared. It hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 5 weeks. Quietly, gently, unforgettably. For many, it played in the background of first heartbreaks. For others, it was on the radio during long drives, soft rain on the windshield. It's the kind of song that doesn't grab you. It lingers. You may not remember where you heard it, but when it plays, it brings it all back, without a single word. Nobody But Me, The Human Beings. Some songs ask politely. This one just jumps right into your head. Released in 1968, Nobody But Me didn't waste time with intros. It burst open with a chant. No! No! And suddenly, you were clapping, nodding, maybe even shouting along. It wasn't complicated, just 2.5 minutes of pure, unruly joy. The Human Beings didn't come from a big scene, just a small band out of Youngstown, Ohio, who happened to catch a wave. Their rough-edged cover of an old Isley Brothers tune hit number 8 on the Billboard charts and became the soundtrack for school dances, backyard parties, and teenage rebellion that didn't need a cause. It's the kind of song you don't remember learning. You just know it, like muscle memory, like a spark. They never had another hit, but they gave us one moment that still hits like a jolt of electricity. The Horse, Cliff Nobles & Co. Some songs make you think. This one just makes you move. Released in 1968, The Horse wasn't even meant to be the hit. It was supposed to be the B-side, just an instrumental version of a vocal track no one paid much attention to. But once DJs flipped it over, the horns took off. Suddenly, this tight, funky jam was everywhere, blasting at basketball games, school dances, and backyard cookouts. No vocals, no flash, just groove. Raw, brassy energy that made it impossible to sit still. It hit number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, and even now, decades later, it still shows up when someone needs a song that moves bodies. It wasn't trying to say anything. It just wanted to get your feet moving, and it still does. Fire, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. Could a man screaming about hellfire and face paint and a flaming helmet really land a hit on American radio? In 1968, Arthur Brown did exactly that. His song Fire didn't tiptoe into the charts, it burst in, wild and loud and theatrical. I am the god of hellfire wasn't just a lyric, it was a warning, and once you heard it, you couldn't unhear it. Arthur wasn't your typical frontman. He didn't play it cool, he played it like a possessed Shakespeare character in a rock opera. But somehow, it worked. The song hit #2 on the Billboard Hot 100, and for a few strange, unforgettable weeks, it was everywhere. Maybe you caught it on the radio and thought, what did I just hear? Or maybe you saw him on TV, flames and all, and had to call someone into the room. It wasn't just a song, it was a moment. He never had another big hit, but fire didn't need one. It lit up the charts once, and somehow, it's still burning in the back of your mind. I Ain't Got to Love Nobody Else. The Masqueraders.
Turn it back on me. I wouldn't.
Could a slow, tear-soaked soul ballad really cut through all the noise in 1968? For one brief, beautiful moment, the Masqueraders proved it could. I Ain't Got to Love Nobody Else didn't scream for attention. It didn't need to. It came in smooth, with layered harmonies, soft horns, and a lead vocal that sounded like it was barely holding it together. The kind of song that said everything, without raising its voice. The Masqueraders weren't new to the grind. They'd been chasing their shot for years, across Memphis, Detroit, and Dallas. But this track, it gave them one perfect moment. A moment that put heartbreak, loyalty, and raw devotion into a single slow-burning groove. Maybe you remember it from a late-night radio station. Or maybe it played during a breakup you didn't see coming. Either way, it had a way of sticking with you. Quietly. They never had another big hit. But this one still hits the heart the same way it did back then. Slow, steady, honest. Harper Valley PTA. Jeannie C. Riley, a small
I'd like to address this meeting of the Harper Valley PTA.
town scandal, and a country beat turned gossip into gold.
No, I wouldn't put you on 'cause it really didn't happen just this way.
Harper Valley PTA was part story, part takedown, and all attitude. In just over 3 minutes, Riley called out a room full of hypocrites, line by line, with a voice that sounded like it had a knowing smile. And America loved every second of it. The song hit #1 on both the country and pop charts, the first time a woman had ever done that. It wasn't just catchy, it was bold. It made you want to cheer. And maybe, just maybe, it reminded you of someone who spoke their mind when nobody else would. Jeannie C. Riley never had another massive hit, but this one, it stuck. Because every town had a Harper Valley. Summertime Blues, Blue Cheer. This wasn't your older brother's Summertime Blues. In 1968, Blue Cheer took Eddie Cochran's teenage anthem and dragged it through a wall of distortion. What came out was loud, heavy, and barely holding itself together. And that's exactly why it worked. There were no studio tricks, no sweet harmonies, just 3 guys from San Francisco playing like the amps might blow at any second. It was raw. It was reckless. And when it hit number 14 on the Billboard charts, a lot of people were caught off guard, in the best way. Maybe you remember hearing it on a college radio station that played whatever it wanted, or maybe it was the soundtrack to a summer that didn't go as planned. Either way, it wasn't pretty, but it was real. Blue Cheer faded fast, but for one loud, defiant moment, they reminded everyone that rock doesn't always need polish. Sometimes it just needs volume. The Unicorn, the Irish Rovers.
I've got some sinning and it gave him pain. And he says, stand back, I'm going to make it rain.
This one shouldn't have worked. A folk song about animals boarding Noah's Ark and unicorns getting left behind?
Alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-back camels and some chimpanzees.
But in 1968, the Unicorn took off, and somehow it made sense. The Irish Rovers weren't pop stars. They were a group of cheerful folk singers from Canada with Irish roots, the kind of band you'd expect to see at a pub, not the top of the charts. But thanks to a Shel Silverstein poem, a lilting melody, and just the right amount of storytelling magic, they landed a surprise top 10 hit. The song was strange, whimsical, a little sad, and totally unforgettable. Maybe you remember the chorus, green alligators and long-necked geese. Or maybe you just remember singing it as a kid, long before you realized the unicorns don't make it. No one expected it to blow up, but it did. And decades later, it's still the weird little folk song that sneaks up on you and stays. Classical Gas, Mason Williams. No lyrics, no chorus, just a guitar and a lot of feeling. Released in 1968, Classical Gas was one of those rare instrumentals that didn't just chart, it soared. Mason Williams, a comedy writer for the Smothers Brothers, wasn't a rock star. But the moment his fingers hit the strings, something clicked. It was fast, clean, emotional, a mix of classical technique and pop instinct. And somehow, it hit number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, with no vocals, no band, no frontman, just music. Maybe you remember it playing on late-night TV or drifting through your dad's old FM station. It was the kind of track that didn't need to say anything out loud. It let the melody do the talking. Mason Williams never chased pop stardom, but with Classical Gas, he gave us something timeless, and every time it plays, it still stops you, just for a moment to listen. Grazing in the Grass, Hugo Montenegro. Some songs make you want to sing. This one just makes you smile. Released in 1968, Grazing in the Grass was a laid-back instrumental that somehow felt like sunshine, bright horns, a bouncy groove, and a trumpet line that danced more than it played. It wasn't in a rush, and that's exactly why people loved it. Hugo Montenegro was already a world-renowned jazz musician from South Africa, but this track, it crossed over, way over. It hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, a rare feat for an instrumental, let alone one built on African jazz rhythms. Masqueraders had bigger goals than pop hits, but for one unforgettable summer, Grazing in the Grass made everything feel lighter, and it still does. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Hugo Montenegro. You didn't need to see the movie. The moment that whistle hit, you already felt it. Released in 1968, Hugo Montenegro's version of Ennio Morricone's famous Western theme became a surprise chart hit and one of the most recognizable instrumental pieces of all time. Whistling, bells, twangy guitars, and that haunting wah wah wah. Somehow, it worked outside the theater just as well as it did on screen. Montenegro was a composer and arranger, not a movie star, but his version of the theme climbed all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. No lyrics, no verses, just pure mood. And once it started, everyone knew where it was going. The wide open desert, the standoff, the showdown. He never had another big pop hit, but this one, it became a soundtrack for things way beyond the Wild West. And somehow, it's still playing. These were the one-hit wonders of 1968. Songs that showed up once and never really left. If one of them brought back a memory or made you smile, drop it in the comments. And if you love rediscovering songs time almost forgot, hit subscribe because sometimes one hit is all it takes.